Hi, I'm Eldon Yoder with Heatmaster, and I thought I'd give you a little tour of the furnace, some tips and explaining some of the function and how some of the airflow works so you can maintain and take care of the furnace the best way you can. I'm actually going to start on the back. That's usually how I do my walkthroughs, so you can see kind of the air intake and work my way around the unit. So one of my goals with this is to take kind of the mystery out of it and make stuff look simple and straightforward. So basically what we're looking at back here is just the back of the water jacket. It's a spray foam tank that surrounds the firebox and the reburn. And I want to show you the airways and how the fire actually burns and how to maintain that and clean that and keep your burn and everything working properly. So before I get into the airways, basically with this being the tank, this is a mixing pump that pulls the hot water off the bottom of the tank, comes up here, dumps it in on the top and pushes it to the front. It stirs the whole tank, keeps it at an even temperature. It stops a lot of boiling issues. It keeps when you're firing the furnace, when it's burning, it actually heats the whole tank and not just a small portion of it up here in the top. And these are supply valves. These are 2 returns. So these are where your pumps to the house would be located, pumping downward. One other thing, this is a drain where you would take your water sample from. So you would, after you run the furnace for a few days or a week, you would open this drain and flush it a little and fill your sample bottle and mail it into the factory. They'll email back test results and you're not just guessing putting the treatment in. It is very important that that test gets sent in yearly, once after startup and then every year after that. So the way this furnace works, the water temperature, when it drops down below 170 degrees, the control sends power to your top air, which is your firebox air. I actually took this panel off. So this would be mounted here, but I wanted you to be able to see actually in there. So this damper, when the water temperature gets down to 170, this damper, typically, depending on the settings, it would be open up 75%. About here, it lets air into this air channel. And this is removable, so if you need to get in there and clean it, you can do that. The air travels to the right and the left, and it goes in through these channels here through the water jacket, and I'll show you where they end up on the other side. So it's going in and feeding into the fire on both sides. Once we get to the front, I'll show you how that air actually travels through. This is your bottom air. This is in the reburn. So as the smoke and the gases get pulled down into the reburn, there's air jets in there that mix and give a fuel-air mixture that burns off in that hollow brick in that tornado combustion chamber. So this damper will only open when the oxygen sensor here gets below 6% or whatever your target that you set on the control. So you'll see this move around based on the oxygen levels in the exhaust. As far as maintenance on these 2 airways, I would probably depends on your wood moisture and different things, but I would loosen this channel. You don't have to take it completely out, but just slide it to the side and check both of these airways probably halfway through the burning season and maybe once in the spring. Same thing on this. This comes completely straight off. You don't have to unwire it. And there's a channel here that directs the air into the air jets there in the brick. Just shine a light in there and check that airway there. If there's any dust in there, you can suck it out with a shop vac. Just double check those, especially if something's not burning right. It's important to check your intake. To identify some other things, so this is the draft fan that's actually providing the suction. When it kicks on at 170, the main firebox damper opens. This fan will be running. I'm going to remove this fan just so you can see how it sucks up through the tubes on the exhaust. So it unplugs here. You've got a cord there, it's easy to take out. You would be loosening these 4 nuts. Don't take them off, just loosen them. Rotate it to the keyhole slot so you can take it out. You can set that aside. And then this fan is pulling air out of the tubes through here and up through the chimney. I'm going to take this whole panel off. You wouldn't normally be taking this off to clean it necessarily, but it is removable, so you can do it a little more thoroughly. If I can get that free. There we go. So I would just be checking this housing every month or 2. Again, it depends on what you're burning, how often this actually needs to be cleaned. I've seen guys need to do it once a month, maybe every 6 months. That will vary depending on your fuel. But that's removable. And then I check the hole up the chimney here. You can get ash buildup up this hole at the top. Just make sure you check that every few months. And then this whole open area, I'll remove this access plate. This is more like a once a year clean out. Some guys get in here more often than that. It's pretty easy. You just take these 4 nuts off, take that plate off, and you'll make more sense once you get to the front, but the exhaust is coming. This one is a G4000. Your exhaust is coming up these 6 tubes going across. A lot of the ash settles out, and then it gets pulled through the fan and out the chimney. I'm going to shake the smoke bypass. Open the smoke bypass and shake the turbulators, and I can show you kind of how that actually functions. So every time you load the furnace, use a light here. Every time you load the furnace, you'll want to shake the turbulators, do a full stroke. I would actually shake that pretty hard. Your goal is to knock all the dust and any accumulated ash off the tubes to get them clean. So don't be shy, slap them hard. And then on the smoke bypass on this side, this handle here at the front, when that opens up, the control starts the fan. It starts pulling, it sucks the smoke out of the firebox. So you have a clean load there. You're not getting smoke in your face. And when you're done, you come over center on this handle here, and we'll lock it. And you feel where it comes up and bumps, and then locks. And that's you're pressing that plate into that tapered hole so that it seals tight. Don't just bump it up gently, actually pinch it tight. I've had some guys recommend that you take like a toothbrush and brush the inside of this oxygen sensor off a little. Don't get rough with it, but just brush it off gently. I haven't seen a lot of buildup on it because it does get hot and burns off any creosote that would accumulate on it, but it's a good idea to brush it off gently occasionally. But in general, this area back here, I'm getting in there maybe once a year or so with a shop vac and just sucking out the ash that blows up in here. You're not in there a lot. On the side here, we got a nice big cover that covers all the control components. Behind here is all your wiring. If you need to ever get into there, it's very wide open. You can see everything once this comes off. But on your day-to-day use, the control here, we'll do a separate video explaining some of the settings and screens there, but you can adjust air damper percentages, various features. Your timer, there's a timer that pulses air to the firebox to keep it lit on a warm day, like in your spring and fall shoulder seasons. But that's a more detailed video we can do later. The function of this is just a switch that turns the control on and off, so most of the time during the heating season that stays on. The power to the fan, if say you didn't clean the fan and there's enough ash buildup on the blaze or something that it would jam, or some chunk of something falls down the chimney on it, it would pop. If it locks up, it'll pop this 2-amp breaker out. So the fan doesn't just keep trying and burn up the motor. So if this pops out, you need to remove the fan and clean it, and clean the housing. The cold start is there. So the control has a feature called a low temp shutdown. So if your water temperature drops down to 170, the fan kicks on, the top air feeds air into the firebox. If it runs and doesn't heat up and it goes all the way down to 140, then the fan shuts down, it blinks the red light on the front, and it assumes it's out of wood because it would have normally heated up. So to restart it, you would press your cold start and go up front. You probably need some small splits and kindling to get it started again. Typically there's some coals in the ash, and you can build up your coal bed again and off you go. But that's what the cold start does, is start a cycle. You can also, at the cold start, you can hold down the cold start for, I think it's 3 seconds, and it'll start a cycle anytime. Like you just want to test that it runs. Anytime it's below 180, you can do a start cycle by holding down the cold start for 3 seconds. Again, this is your shaker. Again, shake it hard, and if you feel it getting tight, it's probably some buildup on the tubes. If it continually gets tight, something's not burning correctly. It could be bridging, it could be blockage on the air intake. Normally this should be free, reasonably free. Smoke bypass, this is an access plate to somewhere where it's measuring the water temperature. It's just to make it easier to get to. On the front, so your normal loading, you would open your bypass, all the way open. The fan's going to come on to suck the smoke away from you. I would crack it to there and just let it suck all the smoke out of the firebox. Don't whip it open and get a face full. Just open it up slowly and let it pull the smoke away from you. What you're seeing inside here, and this furnace hasn't been burned, but you're going to gradually build up an ash bed, and you want an inch or two of ash on the floor. It insulates the coals and it burns better. And then you want about probably 2 to 4 inches of coals, up to maybe even as deep as the bottom of this air panel, completely covering that nozzle. So your air intake, what I showed you on the back, those 2 channels come in behind this panel here, and this panel is removable. You can access it from the front or the back if you ever need to clean it. That panel comes out. That's the same channel I showed you on the back side. That panel clips in there with this pin. So your airflow is coming in here right above the hot coal bed through the bottom layer of wood and pulling the gases and the smoke and everything down through the hot coals and entering the reburn. And then your bottom air has these little air jets in the nozzle there. And so it's pulling that smoke through and hitting that hot air that's being injected and making basically like a big weed burner torch. It's just a big torch flame that goes back and forth through the reburn. And I'll show you that in a minute. Your goal in your loading is to have all your wood hit the floor tight, down tight on the hot coals so they ignite and keep burning. So you're wanting to maintain a good hot coal bed there all the time. As far as loading, it's going to vary a little bit with your fuel. So if you've got softer woods, pine or poplar, or, I don't know what you have in your area, it's going to burn a little differently than hickory and maple and oak and some of your hardwoods. But your goal is to keep that coal bed there and basically load for probably 12 to 16 hour burn time. Like, don't load it for 36 hours on a hot day, if you're burning for hot water in the summer. But don't let it burn down so low that you lose your coal bed. You got to keep a coal bed there. So say we've loaded this thing. Oh, one thing I thought I'd mention, most guys are having more success laying the wood crossways across the nozzle versus longways. It helps a bit on bridging because the hottest part of the coal bed is typically down the center, and sometimes you can burn out your center log and the side logs don't burn as quickly and they form a bridge or an arch. So crossways, it cuts it and drops your wood. You can do it either way, but in general you just want to thump your wood and make it fall down, and sometimes crossways burning really can help certain types of wood fall better. Then when you're done loading, if you close the door, and don't forget to close your bypass and lock it. And come up and bump and lock. The red light will blink while you're loading to remind you to close it, and if you leave it open for more than 5 minutes, it'll shut down and blink the red light, and there'll be anytime this light blinks, the control will tell you why it's blinking, so it'll remind you to close the bypass. So you can't just leave it open. So you're wondering, like, where does these gases, when they get sucked down in the bottom, what happens down there? So this is your ash clean out where you access the reburn. I would typically open the bypass at least enough to turn on the fan while I'll lock it there, but while you're cleaning out down here, just so you can't get any puff of ash or any of the fans pulling away from you. So to open this, you open it up, just remember this, if it's just done a burn cycle, you could be 2,000 degrees down here. Like, you can melt glass in the reburn. So it's very hot. Often you'll see, after you run a few weeks, there'll be like a snowdrift of ash around the corner here, and that's normal. You just don't want it to pile up till it chokes. But I'll show you where the airflow actually goes. You remove the plug here. This tool is made to grab that so you don't burn yourself. Don't set this in some snow or ice. Just set it off here to the side. We saw the nozzle from the top and the air jets. I'm going to show it to you from the bottom. If you look up in there, the camera can catch it there, you'll see the nozzle coming in the right-hand side. So the flame is going to be sucking down, and with the plug in place, it has to go to the back. So it's swirling, it's hitting the side and mixing all the way in the back, burning off the smoke, coming through the brick and all the way up this side. It makes a loop, like a 180. And so typically on a high burn, it's putting flame all the way through, hitting the deflector and coming across the front, and then it slows down and drops the ash. So you'll see that ash snowdrift. But ash will build up in here. Sometimes you'll even get a crust, it'll melt. So to clean that, you take out your plug, you would use your ash rake. You would run that all the way to the back and slightly to the left, grab the ash, pull it out. Often most of the ash will be right here in the front. The stuff in the back blows through. Don't let your ash come up and hit that nozzle and plug it. You want to keep it cleaned out every week or so. On this side, you can just spin your ash rake and work it through. You set this over here. Go all the way to the back, grab the ash, pull it out, dump it there. You can use this tool to sweep it into like a metal bucket or a dustpan or something. It's typically not a lot of ash. You're getting a little every week or so. Then put your plug back in. And that rotates and slides out. Then, so where does it go from there? So your flame is coming around, dying out, goes to the back. Your exhaust tubes, if you remember when we were back there on the back, are around behind the brick on this side. So when you take your clean out tool, this one, you would run this and lift it up over top of the ash. You don't want to shove the ash to the back. Go all the way to the back, go around behind that, the reburn brick there. So you're underneath the tubes. I can actually touch the end of those spirals, those scrapers, we call them turbulators, inside the tubes. I'll go all the way to the left, grab the ash, pull it to the right, and all the way to the front. And I'd be going back in there and raking that out also. And the interval on that, when you're burning hard, you might want to do it once a week. Spring and fall, maybe every 2 weeks, but you don't want to let ash pile up back around behind. You got to make sure you go all the way to the left. And then you close that up. You're good to go on cleaning. Ash in the firebox will slowly accumulate, like your floor of your firebox is about here. Your nozzle's in the center. Your air holes coming in are up here. Let your ash build up. You know, you can go up to the bottom of your air holes, but you don't want to get ash up on the panels. You'll overheat the panels, they'll start warping a little. And you can plug the drainage where it drains creosote out about from behind the panels, those little holes across the bottom. Adjustments. Over time, you will see your gasket here compress and pack a groove. It's a silicone covered gasket, so it's very durable. Two things I do, probably every few weeks, I take like a putty knife or something and scrape that gasket. You can actually heat it with a torch if you get a bunch of creosote, or you get lazy like I do, and clean that off. You want silicone to be hitting this door jamb, not creosote to creosote. It seals a lot better. I would also clean this door jamb off with my ash rake here. Like scrape that back into the fire. Like that. I would take my ash rake and knock the creosote that runs down. Gasification furnaces are typically fairly cool up here because all the heat's being pulled down, so that you do get some condensation running down. That's normal. And you just knock that off your air panel so the holes don't get blocked. Adjustments though, as that gasket compresses, you'll see that handle come around and it's got a good pinch. Over time, if you hear it sucking in, leaking air, you can adjust. This handle, if you loosen this nut, it's slotted. So you can adjust your handle in and out. In this case, I guess you would be moving it back. And when it comes around the roller, it would bite a little harder. The roller is adjustable vertically and the handle is adjustable this way. So you've got some movement there, same on the bottom. And the hinge side, you can loosen these nuts. The simplest way I've found to do it is to take like a crowbar or flat bar, put it in here and lift up on it, and you can loosen these two nuts and force your door in slightly and tighten it back down and keep that gasket tight. The water level float. So this is an open tank, there's no pressure. You probably know that, but this float here just rides in the very top of the tank. So there's water jacket all the way around the reburn. So this is just up here in the top. So it's normal for this float being right in the top of that curved tank to have a little fluctuation with the temperature changes. So if you let the fire go out, it'll drop a little. When it heats up, it'll expand. If you fill it up when it's cold, it's going to run several gallons of water out on the roof of the furnace. You'll dilute the water treatment. So just keep in mind, your refill is probably here, and when it's hot, it'll be here. Just keep it somewhere in the yellow is fine. That just drops in. That's also if you need to add treatment back. If you come back with a low test result, you would be pouring your treatment in the top there, but you'd only add that if you get a low test. If you're not using it in the summer, I would cover the chimney so you don't get water, the rainwater washing ash out of the chimney down into the fan. So yeah, you will see quite a bit of variation in how the wood burns based on the species. Like if you have pine or poplar or oak or all these um, different species of wood. Some of your softer woods tend to break down more quickly. Harder woods hold together more. So it's going to take a little experimentation. You find that you need to split harder woods smaller so it crumbles into a coal bed. Softer woods you can leave a little larger, but that varies quite a bit depending on your species of wood. Wood moisture content, so a dry piece of wood will crumble much quicker than a wet piece of wood. So if you're burning wetter wood, you need to split it up smaller so it'll crumble and create your coal bed. If I'm running out of dry wood, I would often put my driest wood in the bottom and put the wetter stuff on top so it has time to dry as it falls down, because your burning happens down at the bottom, so that's where you need your dry wood. But it can dry a bit in the firebox. Just realize you're going to have more condensation around the door, on the side walls if you're burning wetter wood. So say you run out of wood or you're getting low on wood in the winter and you need to dry it quickly. What I would typically try to do, obviously look for dead standing stuff that's up off the ground. That helps a lot. Certain species of wood will get punky, some will get hard when they're dead standing. So depending, you can, like around at home, maple and locust and stuff will get really hard, and oak will tend to get wet and punky. They'll soak up moisture, so that'll vary. But if you get it cut, split it up fairly small, put it where the sun can hit it and the wind can move through it. Like put a cover over top, but don't put it in a shed, then pack it tight. Like let the air get through. The best wood shed is a south-facing, open, plenty of breeze. Depending on where you're at, you may have more snow or not. That could be a factor. You don't want snow blowing in amongst it and making a block of ice. But in general, it's air and the sun on it makes a huge difference. You can dry much quicker, and splitting it up so it has a lot of surface area and lining up your row of wood so the wind blows through it sideways. You have a strong west wind. It can really help you get that wood dried down as quickly as possible. You can literally cut your wood drying time in half just by thinking through a few things like that and how you can arrange it where the wind and sun can help you out. And keeping it up off the ground, like don't stack it in the dirt, like put it on a pallet or some raised so we can get the air underneath. Helps that bottom rows dry out. Yeah, so that's a quick walkthrough on things that I've learned in trying to make things flow smoothly. We want it to work for you. That's the whole point. We want you comfortable, we want you warm. If you have any issues, if something doesn't seem quite right, call your dealer, text him a picture, whatever you can do to make contact there to resolve it. At Heatmaster, our way of thinking on this is like, let's fix it now, let's not deal with it later. Let's solve this. So if there's a scenario where you're seeing more creosote in the firebox than you would like, maybe your coal bed isn't keeping up, your shaker handle is starting to get a little sticky, you can tell there's some creosote in the tubes, something's not burning right, call right away. Don't let the problems accumulate. Usually being proactive is much easier to resolve than dealing with it months down the road. But yeah, thanks for watching. We want to help.